processor utilization. Okay, if you take processor utilization means, students, making the use of processor in its maximum efficiency. We call it as processor utilization or CPU utilization. So we have to use this CPU in maximum efficiency. Hope you can remember that batch OS, batch operating system, processor utilization is low because one batch, that means bundle of job, is called as one batch. So one batch input into the system. After each and every job of one batch is completed, then it gives the output. Then we have to load the second batch. So in that point, CPU utilization is low. Most of the time, CPU is in idle state. Even I already explained in that point, CPU in idle state. So in that point, CPU utilization or the processor utilization is low. But in multi-programming and multitasking and multi-threading, processor utilization is high because processor doesn't exist in idle state. If one process, I'll explain that multi-programming, I already explained it, I just give an idea. If one process is running on the CPU, if it needs IO event, it comes out and next process comes to CPU. And if it goes to termination, next process comes to CPU. It executes on the CPU. If it goes to IO event, then next process comes to CPU. Likewise, CPU utilization is high in multi-programming. Multitasking, a process is running on the CPU. If the time quantum is finished, that process forcefully removed by the CPU and send it to the ready queue, and next process come to the CPU and it executes. And if the time limit is exceed, that particular process removed by the CPU and send it to the ready queue, and next process is execute here. So there are also processor utilization or CPU utilization is high. And multi-threading, you know, a process, if we take a process, we can divide it into threads. Thread 1, thread 2, thread 3, likewise. So even multi-threading operating system, multiple threads are there, all the threads related to one process. So those threads are executing on the CPU. So one after another thread is executing there. So processor utilization is high. So these things we have already discussed, students. So making use of a processor to its maximum efficiency, we call it as processor utilization. So if processor utilization is high, it's better, it's good. If processor utilization is low, it's not a good thing, students, because processor has to wait. Processor is in idle state, right? Okay, students, that is called processor utilization. So this process management, the purpose of process management, which is handled by OS, is increase the processor utilization. Again, I'll repeat it. Purpose of process management, which is handled by operating system, is increase the processor utilization. Clear? It's a very important point, students. Yeah, it's better to write down that point. No need these things already I have explained. Just write that point. Purpose of process management, which is handled by OS, is to increase the CPU utilization, or is to increase, it's better to say processor utilization. processor utilization. Yes, write down that point, students. If in exam they asked what is the purpose of process management, we can give this answer. Okay, process management is handled by operating system. The purpose of process management is increase the processor utilization. Increase the processor utilization means processor always in working, always busy, not in idle state. Not in idle state. This is called processor utilization. Clear? Is it clear, students?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Right. If you have any doubts or questions, please let me know. Then only I can explain it again or using another example. Right. Now I am going to explain this processor utilization using that IO bound and CPU bound. You already know what is IO bound, what is CPU bound. Yes, sir. Let me know, Asma, what is IO bound process? Simply, what is an IO bound process? Yes, someone else? IO bound process?
A process which needs more IO time.
Yeah, easy. A process which needs more IO time is IO bound process. Yes, what is process? CPU bound process.
Any process which need CPU time is
Yeah, a
called.
process which needs more CPU time is called as CPU bound process. Right. I'm going to explain this processor utilization using IO bound and CPU bound process. Right. This is the CPU. Okay. If IO bound process comes to CPU, for example, we'll think like this: P1, P2, P3 are IO bound processes, P4, P5, P6 are CPU bound processes. Okay, concentrate. If a IO bound process come to CPU, P1 comes to CPU for execution. Already it is in RAM ready queue. So P1 comes to CPU. Now it executes. But P1 is an IO bound process. P1 is an IO bound process. So frequently it needs IO. So it comes to IO event, isn't it? It comes to
Yes.
IO event. Yeah. Then what happens? Next process goes to CPU. We'll think P2. So P2 is running. So it is also IO bound process. It is also IO bound process. So frequently it need input output. So it goes to IO event. Then next process comes to CPU. P3 is running. So P3 also IO bound process. So it also frequently need IO, so IO event. So it goes to IO event. So what has happened here? If all the processes or if most of the processes in the queue, ready queue are IO bound processes, actually it's a problem, students, because all the processes are going to have the IO event, and it again after completion of the IO event, it can't come to the CPU. I'll explain this. That means while we are discussing process state diagrams, I'll explain this in detail. Now here I'll give a brief idea. Okay, so whenever a process comes to IO event, it can't go to CPU again. It goes to the ready queue, RAM. Then it has to come to CPU again and do its execution. Again, it needs IO event, then comes to blocked state and go to the, after completion of the IO event, it goes to the ready queue. And again, it's execute, comes to CPU and execute. So this happens. That's not a good thing. It reduces the processor utilization. If all the processes are IO bound or most of the processes are IO bound, so it reduces the processor utilization, because switching, always switching, one process, it goes to IO event, another process comes, it goes to IO event, another process comes, it goes to IO event. So that takes, that means that take a significant time. That means remove a process from the CPU and take another next process from the RAM. It need a significant time. So processor utilization may become low there. Is it clear? Students, is it clear? I didn't get
Yes,
any
sir.
reply. Right, okay. But now I am coming to this CPU bound process. Okay. So CPU bound process P4 is running on the CPU. So CPU bound process means this process need more CPU time. So until its termination, P4 is running on the CPU. For example, we'll think P4 need 5 seconds, P5 needs 2 seconds, P6 need 1 millisecond or 10 millisecond. Millisecond means one part, that means 100. If you divide second by 100, 1 millisecond. So here 10 millisecond. Okay, right. P4 is running. So P4 is CPU bound process. So after completion, it goes to termination, and P5 is comes to CPU, and P5 is running. After 2 seconds, it goes to termination, and P6, then only P6 can enter into the CPU. Actually, P6 need only 10 millisecond, but it has to wait here 500 millisecond, here 200 millisecond. That means 700 millisecond has to wait this P6 to allocate the CPU. So it is also not a good thing, because processors has to wait more and more time in ready queue, in RAM or in main memory. So that also reduce the processor utilization. Okay, therefore, while process, that means RAM in ready queue, processors are there. So processors picked as a mix, IO bound, CPU bound, IO bound, CPU bound. Likewise, it has to pick to the CPU. That means it has to allocate the CPU as a mix, not all IO bound processors, all CPU bound processors. Hope it's clear, students. So I'll explain this a little bit in detail while we are learning that process states, right? So far it's enough. That means if all the processors are IO bound, it's not good. And if all the processors are CPU bound, it is also not good. If there's a mix of IO bound and CPU bound, it's a good thing. It's a good schedule, right? Okay, students. Now we have to move on to very important part, actually heart of this lesson, that is 7-state diagram. First of all, we are going to discuss 5-state diagram. After that, another 2 states are there. A process can reside in 7 states. So normally in 5 states are there. So thereafter we have to discuss another 2 states. So altogether 7 states. A process, whenever a process starts until its termination, it can reside, it can wait in 7 states. Right, students? Let's move on to that part. So concentrate. Right, first state is ready. Or sorry, first state, we take it as new, not ready. That is second state, new. Whenever a program means it resides on the hard disk, secondary memory, then if it starts its execution, it comes to new state. A program start its execution, it is called as a process, it comes to new state. Okay, then it goes to ready state. Then it goes to move on to ready state, students. Actually, ready state means RAM. Okay, so programs may start its execution. Whenever a program start its execution, it comes to ready state. At the same time, many processes can reside on the ready state. So we call it as a ready queue. I'll take only 4, P1, P2, P3, P4. So these processes are waiting. These processes comes from new state. Whenever a program start, it becomes a process, then it goes to ready state. So all the processes wait in the ready queue, actually in RAM, main memory, because they need to go to CPU, but CPU can't, yes, CPU can't simultaneously run many processes. Only one process can run at a time. So this is called running state. Okay, that is called running state. So processes are waiting in the ready queue, enters to the running queue for its execution. Here no execution is there, just waiting. Okay, data and instructions are stored in RAM and processes are waiting for its execution. So whenever CPU is free or CPU, a process is going to terminated or process is going to IO event, another process can enter to CPU, right? We'll take P1 is here. Here, a new state, a process in new state comes to ready state. We call it as admit. Yes, I'll use another color there. It is called as admit. Many processes are waiting ready queue, that means RAM. So one process can allocate to the CPU. So that is done by dispatcher. Okay, we can call it as dispatch. A process going to CPU for execution, it is called as dispatch. Whenever a process is running on the CPU, it can goes to 3 states. It can move on to 3 states. If that particular process needs IO event, it needs IO event, or even we can say IO request, it comes to blocked state. It comes to, yes, I'll take it to here. It comes to blocked, even we can say waiting state. Don't draw this, students. I'll give the time to draw this. Just try to understand what I am saying. CPU, the CPU. So whenever a process is running on the CPU, executing on the CPU, if that particular process needs input output event, it comes to blocked state. Okay, even we can say waiting state. So IO event. Right, and a running process, if a running process complete its execution, it goes to terminated state. A running process complete its execution, it goes to terminated state. You can say completion or termination. It goes to terminated state, right? Okay, and even we have discussed that time sharing operating system or multitasking operating system. Can you explain how the processor is working, CPU is working while multi-sharing operating system is there? Yes, students, can you remind what has happened? Time sharing or multitasking operating system? By operating system, a time quantum is allocated, isn't it? By operating system, a time quantum is allocated to the CPU. So after time quantum finished, for example, P1 is running, so the time quantum is finished. Forcefully, this P1 is removed by the CPU and sent to ready queue. But multi-programming, we can't do like that. Multi-programming, if P1 complete its execution, we'll take complete, terminate. P1 complete its execution, it goes to terminated state. Okay. If P1 needs IO event, P1 itself has to, that means come out of the CPU and go to blocked state. That is multi-programming. But multitasking is not like that. If the given time quantum is finished, P1 forcefully removed by the CPU and comes to ready queue. Okay. So the reason timeout, sorry, timeout or even by priority based, it can happen. A process, a running process can forcefully removed by the CPU and send it to the ready queue. Okay, right. Then another, these are the main 5 states. Another one thing I have to mention, just a minute. I'll take these words to here. RAM. We'll take processes to here. P3, P4. Right. A running process needs IO event. Whenever a running process needs IO event, it comes to blocked waiting states. Whenever it got that IO event or IO event occurs, if IO event occurs, it goes to ready state again. So we can call it as IO event occur. Right? Okay, students, these are the 5 state process transition diagram. So hope it's clear. I am going to explain it, and that means once, because now all these states are complete. New state, ready state, running state, terminated state, and blocked waiting state. Right. I'm going to repeat it again. Concentrate. Whenever a program starts its execution, it comes to new state. Then it can admit to ready state. Okay, that is done by long-term scheduler. We'll discuss those later. Long-term scheduler, mid-term scheduler, and short-term scheduler are there. Those kind of things we'll discuss later. If not, this will be complex. Okay, right. Process. Whenever a program becomes process, that means start its execution, it admit to the ready state. So ready state means RAM. So it has to wait. That processes has to wait in a ready queue. So by the processes are in ready queue, can enters to CPU for running state. Actually, for the execution, only one process can enter into CPU at a time. Only one process can allocate the CPU at a time, because CPU can't execute more than one processes at a time. So whenever a process is running on the CPU, it can goes to 3 states. If the execution is completed, all the instructions are executed, execution is complete, it goes to terminated state. If that particular process need IO event, it is moved to the blocked or the waiting state. Okay. If that particular process need IO event, it moves to the blocked or the waiting state. If that particular process, that means time sharing or multitasking operating system is there, CPU has given an time quantum, operating system given time quantum to the CPU. For example, if we think 2 milliseconds, yeah, we'll take 5 milliseconds, but this P1 needs 22 milliseconds. So P1 comes, P1 running. So after 5 millisecond, P1 process actually need 22 millisecond. But the time quantum given by the operating system is 5 millisecond. That means one process can reside on the CPU only 5 millisecond. Whatever the time it needs, it can process, it can execute only 5 millisecond. After 5 millisecond, timeout, then that particular process is moved to the ready queue again, and next process comes to CPU for execution. Okay, that is happen in time sharing or multitasking operating system. So a process, a running process can comes to terminated, can goes to terminated state, can goes to blocked or waiting state, can goes to ready state. Right? Hope it's clear. So if a process comes to blocked or waiting state, it comes for IO event, it need IO event. So whenever IO event is completed or IO event occur, it goes to ready state again. That's all, students. That's all about 5-state transition, process transition diagram. 5-state process transition diagram. So here new, it's in secondary storage. This is main memory or the primary memory. This is CPU, and here terminated, it is also going to secondary storage. Here this one also in RAM. This blocked waiting, it is also in RAM. Okay, this is in hard disk drive. RAM, CPU, even this one considered as hard disk drive. Right, students? So hope it's enough, hope it's clear. Is it okay, students? Clear? Do you have any doubts or questions? Yes, questions, please let me know. Students,
Sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
This is heart of the process management. Okay, you have to remember all these. Not today, inshallah, next day, next class, I'll give the chance to you. So you have to explain all these states. Hope it's you can do it. If not, how to answer exam questions? Yeah. So you have to explain all these states. That means if a process, a program start its execution until its termination, you can explain these states. What are the states, right? Quickly draw this diagram, students. After that, we'll move on to another 2 states are there. So I didn't attach those 2 states here. I'll explain it after this. Okay, right. Quickly draw this diagram. After completion, please raise your hands. This is called 5-state process transition diagram. Okay, students, sorry. Right. So capacity of the hard disk, it is larger than RAM. Actually in terabytes, we can call it as 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte likewise. But capacity of the RAM, it is limited. 4 GB, 8 GB or 2 GB likewise, it is very limited. So if many processes at the same time, many processes can wait on the ready queue. Many processes can wait on the ready state. It is possible. So if many processes comes to ready state, sometimes the capacity of the RAM may not enough to keep all those processes in RAM. In such situation, we are not having a error message. Wait, you can't run this process, already ready queue is filled. Likewise, we are not having a message. Whatever we are running, all those processes are going to ready. So therefore, if the capacity of the RAM is not enough or lack of storage capacity of RAM, more processes are there. So capacity of the RAM is limited. So lack space there. So therefore, another state creates that is called suspend ready. That is called suspend ready. Because of the capacity of the RAM is limited and more processors are comes for the execution. So ready state need more space but can't take because RAM capacity of RAM is limited. Therefore, a process in the ready state move to the suspend ready. It is called